Started. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us in today's webinar on excelling in the job market, emerging AI skills to land your next opportunity. My name is Johannah. I work at the Vector Institute, and I'm excited to be zooming in on the AI job market with you today and sharing about ways that you can help yourself prepare better for your next career opportunity in AI. So as we open today's session, I would first like to reflect on the journeys of those that came before us. And although this meeting is virtual, I would like to first acknowledge the land on which Vector Institute is situated, which is the traditional territory of many nations, the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. We acknowledge that Toronto was covered by Treaty 13 signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaty signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands, and we are very grateful that Vector is being hosted on this land. I would also invite all of you joining us virtually to also reflect on the lands in which you are situated and the Indigenous peoples that came before you. So I'd like to kick off today's session with some housekeeping notes and to walk through today's agenda. So to note, the session is being recorded and we will share it and post at a later date, so not to worry if there's anything you want to circle back to at a later time. There is a Q&A feature that is also on today, so feel free to drop any questions you may have about the content that's being presented, as well as for our fireside chat speakers later on using the Q&A function. We probably won't get to all of your questions, but we will try and answer the ones that are most frequently asked. And I'm just going to walk quickly through today's agenda. So this presentation is focused on some of the insights through a recent research project that we're working on. So I will go over the research collaboration that led to the report and its insights, highlight some of the emerging skills from the analysis of the job postings and employer interviews, share about what employers are looking for now, and then end off with some next steps you could take for success. But finally, a fireside chat with two recent Vector alumni in exciting AI roles to share their advice with you. So that's what we're going to walk through today, and I'll go ahead and get started. So first of all, introduction to methodology. Let's start off with the scope of the research. So Vector Institute engaged the Conference Board of Canada alongside the Future Skills Centre and Vicinity Jobs to collaborate with the aim of better understanding the market for AI talent and skills necessary to excel in this field. This research included interviews earlier this year with 46 business leaders in senior machine learning and data roles across both Canada and the US to get their perspectives in AI hiring and who they are looking to hire. And this includes enterprise companies that were predominantly AI adjacent, as well as small and medium enterprises that were focused on building AI products. In addition to that, the project also involved analyzing nearly 17 million job postings across 6 years, which led to identifying almost over 450,000 postings that required AI skills. And I'll have to say, what does that mean for you in terms of emerging skills? So after speaking to all of these employers and looking through all these job postings, what did we find out? So what we're seeing here is the research is showing us there's been an evolution across the past 6 years in the types of technical skills that employers are looking for. So for those of you who are wondering, looking at this chart, what the difference between core AI skills and peripheral AI skills are, I'll get into that right now. So core AI skills you'll see reflected on one axis, and that refers to those that are only and directly applicable in the context of developing and using AI technologies. So you're thinking about things like neural networks, deep learning, PyTorch, TensorFlow, and this follows everything from AI development quality assurance to machine learning operations to foundational AI and the use of AI tools. Peripheral AI skills are those that are important and critical to the use of AI, but can also play a role in other contexts like software development, cloud computing, SQL, Python, Java. So what we're seeing here is that although the demand for peripheral AI skills decreased by about 46% across these 6 years, the really bright spot in all of this is that core AI skills are incredibly resilient, and as students in specialized AI programs, that should be great news to all of you, as we are seeing demand increasing by almost 40%. So the growth in core AI skills requirements is telling us that companies are increasingly prioritizing advanced AI capabilities, and they're focusing more on specialized knowledge and skills. On the other hand, decline we're seeing in the demand for peripheral AI skills tells us that basic programming and data manipulation are being augmented more with automation tools and replaced perhaps with other tools and programs. But it doesn't mean that those skills are not important, but it is important to note that companies generally are prioritizing roles where these are key skills a little bit less often. Okay. Second thing to note, digging deep into core AI skills, we're seeing major changes to market demands from pre-pandemic to post-pandemic. So there's been a lot of change in AI for the last few years, and we're seeing significant growth in productization and a greater focus in deployment with increases across the board in nearly all core AI skills categories from AI governance and ethics to the use of AI tools. And we expect there to be continued growth here over time and more roles that increasingly demand foundational machine learning and deep learning skills. Over the past few years, we've seen, noting here, a 25% growth demand for AI governance and ethics in roles. And this should be a greater focus as we require a deeper understanding of AI and risk. As our regulatory environment catches up with our technology and as the capabilities of AI grow, it's really important that we have these safety valves on for this technology. And then, of course, very, very important, use of AI tools. There's obviously been new AI tools that have emerged in foundational AI as there are new models being developed and implemented. It's very important to keep on top of those as well as organizations. I really, really want to quickly highlight some of the top soft skills that are listed in critical AI role job postings. To no one's surprise, we can see that teamwork, communication skills, and leadership are all really high priority. And I will unpack what that means to employers in just a moment because it might not be quite what you think, but I want you to keep this in mind as we talk about the skills a little bit later on. So before we dive deep into some of the emerging skills and what that means that organizations adopting AI, I want to point out some of the differences across organization types and some of their needs, which may help position yourselves as you figure out what kinds of roles you're looking for and your AI path. Because organizational context matters, and depending on where you want to work for, where you are in your career, it's good to know the demands of the different kinds of employers and how the skill sets they're looking for may change. So you see here on the left, there's enterprise organizations. You're thinking about your larger, more established companies. You're thinking about your Googles, your large consulting firms, financial services firms, and they often have infrastructure for training programs. So they'll often have early career programming. They'll have junior data science roles, junior machine learning engineer roles, and they often have active programs in place to seek early career talent. So if you're looking for more of a structured development path where there's a very clear, steps that take you to a leadership role or a team lead in AI, enterprise organizations might be more for you if you're starting out. However, if you are have more specialized skills and are a little bit more established and have more work experience, the startup and scale up may be better for you. So they tend to look for people who can immediately hop in and contribute. There's a preference for more specialized skills, and depending on your preference and your work style, the training is more on the job. So rather than having a formalized structured training program, you learn as you go, which works for some people and may not work for others. So there you have it. And another thing I want to talk about too is how the market is shifting in terms of what companies are doing. So companies are moving away from building solutions from the ground up, but are often buying plug-and-play solutions and are looking for ways these systems can be integrated in their existing processes and to help address their business problems. So students such as yourselves or new graduates should then be identifying how these ML tools can solve business problems, when AI tools could be the right solution, and how these solutions can be tested effectively to improve organizational efficiency. In addition, it's important to keep in mind how these systems can be scaled. So can new hires work with, for example, multimodal AI and different types of data, such as text, as well as images and audio, and being able to integrate all of those pieces will be a critical skill moving forward. Another thing is increased focus on risk and governance. I mentioned that a little bit earlier, but employees will need to understand how privacy, security, and transparency can be built into existing models. regulations will absolutely change, and trust in AI systems will be required from customers and stakeholders in order to effectively adopt these technologies. So a lot of companies will have a legal team you'll have to consult with, and as a technical individual who is entering the field, what does that look like for you, being able to stay on top of regulation and understand how to explain these models to people who are not technical. The impact of Gen AI is also very apparent. So most companies are very excited about how to incorporate Gen AI tools. A lot have adopted something like Microsoft Copilot in their everyday work and are using these tools to automate existing processes or increase productivity. And this is across both large and small companies. So that will absolutely have an impact into what skills are required as well. Okay, let's hop into what employers are actually looking for. Talked a little bit about skills, high-level job postings, but what does this mean when we're digging deep and interviewing these employers? What we're hearing from employers are that new graduates often lack experience with real-world data because they're graduating from these programs where you often have these research projects or you work on these really specific course-based projects where there's a really clean data set, it's organized, it's potentially theoretical, and that's not what it looks like in the real world setting where data is messy, it's from different sources, it's from different work streams. Sometimes there's missing data. And employers are letting us know that when graduates enter the workforce, this is surprising to them and they've never done that before. So that's important to keep in mind. There's the second thing is that new graduates are often reported as lacking the skills to align their work and expertise with business needs. So the ability to articulate what this technical solution means in terms of a business outcome is a challenge that nearly all graduates are experiencing. Because there's this increased focus on productization, the ability to understand how to quickly deploy models into production and understanding what that end-to-end lifecycle of an AI project looks like and how it works and how your role fits within that and different teams is also a challenge that's been reported for many new graduates. And that could be something simple as the AI project manager not understanding what that means for a data engineer and vice versa, and how those workflows all fall together and what's required at each stage to make the project successful. Sector knowledge. So AI knowledge is absolutely fantastic, and we're seeing that foundational AI skill set being very important, but sector knowledge, for example, in a financial service firm or within the context of health, that is important to understand what needs to be executed and ties back to that business outcomes. So if we don't understand the regulations and don't have knowledge of the policies and processes and the various needs of stakeholders like clinicians within the health setting, that can be a challenge when you're trying to implement an AI product in a hospital or in the healthcare system or in finance. So that sector knowledge is really, really key to making sure that projects are executed successfully. And last but not least, product management experience. So beyond being able to regulate yourself, what does that look like in terms of being timelines for other people and all of the resourcing that needs to happen in order for a project to be successful? I can see some questions popping in the chat. And I will answer those in a bit, I think. So I'll circle back to those questions, but I do see you. Okay, so now I've talked about what employers said that new graduates don't have. Let me talk about what this means in terms of skills for yourself. So deployment is a very, very key skill. And what that means is, as a new graduate, can you understand a model end to end and be able to troubleshoot? So when I think that a lot of graduates, and employers have said this as well, graduate, they have used AI models, they've applied them in perhaps their own project, they've done course-based projects where that's part of their curriculum. But when you're looking at a new model that's in a system, in a workplace, can you figure out what's went wrong when something is not working correctly? And that's the challenge I think that lots of employers are looking for, because they're moving towards buying these solutions, is they're looking for someone who can problem solve rather than build from the ground up. And that falls into integration. So can you take an AI tool that's ready-made off the shelf to build a new product and understand how that new product can fit into the existing processes and systems of organization? Can you take that AI tool and adopt it and find out ways you can prompt it or modify it or maybe experiment with it so that it helps address a solution that a company is looking for a bit better? So it's less about trying to go in and I apply the model that you learned that was really, really, really cool, but figuring out about how something that a company has bought or is intending to implement can fit with the company's goals. An engineering mindset. So falls into this as well is a lot of new graduates we've heard are excited to go in and show everything they've learned. There's all these complex models, but sometimes that's not the right solution. So can you go into the workforce and pick maybe the right AI solution to solve the problem? And sometimes that's a regression. Sometimes it's a basic statistical test. It's not a complex AI model that's actually not efficient and not a good use of resources. So that engineering mindset comes into play. Can you figure out the right solution that's most effective, which is not always the most fun and not always the most interesting to a student, but would be the right solution for the business? Cross-disciplinary training. So I talked about sector specific earlier, and what this means is how can you leverage your knowledge outside of AI to help you stand out? So going back to my example for healthcare, for example, if you have years of experience working as a clinician or working with health policy, and you are looking to go to an organization where you're building a health product that you want clinicians to adopt, that experience is so, so, so important. So how can you position that knowledge as something that benefits the employer and helps you stand out? Because you'll have an understanding of regulation for the sector. You'll have an understanding of what the various stakeholders want. That are not the technical teams or necessarily the C-suite, but they'll be the people who are actually using these tools. And that cross-disciplinary piece is an important translation bridge between technical and non-technical that is required in order for companies to be successful. I'll also fall into some of these non-AI skills to attach to that storytelling with that cross-disciplinary training. Can you explain your AI project to a decision maker? Because if you can't do that, you won't be successful. You need to be able to articulate the impact of what you're working on, why what you're choosing is important, and have that be impactful and motivate someone to pick her solution. So practice your storytelling, and I'll get a little bit more in depth into that, but you need to be able to explain your AI project or your algorithm in non-technical terms to anyone, whether that be a recruiter, whether that to be a friend who is not working in AI, whether that be to a project manager who doesn't really know what AI is. That's very, very, very key. Teamwork. So a lot of us may be coming from research-based programs or programs where we're self-oriented. We maybe meet with our labs once a week, but it's important to work well under pressure because ultimately a lot of these are for-profit companies where working well under pressure and meeting timelines and the needs of stakeholders is very important. So keep that in mind and think about that as you approach your next application. Management and leadership is something that stood out as well. So maturity and thinking beyond the technology, again, putting on your business lens. What does this mean? What does what you're working on mean for someone who is motivated to, report this back to the CEO or report this back to a board of directors? So thinking beyond the technology, what is the ultimate impact of what you're working on, and have that hat on as you are approaching your work. And then the last non-AI skill is actually multiple AI skills, but these are all things that have been listed by employers as things that are challenging to find and things that are challenging to assess, but wearing many hats. So the ability to be both the person that troubleshoots, but also the person that communicates, and also the person that, is a great team player and someone that's reliable. So all of those things, and being able to be all those things at once. Problem solving, so we mentioned that earlier. Curiosity. So this is someone who is interested in experimentation. They don't just do exactly what they're told, but maybe if you're given a project, we'll go out and dig deep for possible solutions, finding out what's most effective, being interested in the data, asking the right questions, asking the right people. So curiosity and creativity kind of go hand in hand, but those are things that I think make a lot of candidates stand out to employers. So listed a lot of skills. There's a lot of things going on. So I want to give you some concrete steps that you could potentially take to work on these skills. Let's get into it. Bridging the gap. What are your next steps? So let's focus on technical first, because that seems less loaded, but MLOps and infrastructure, really, really important as a skill. It's growing deeply. So let's focus on the areas that show the highest growth and are projected to continue to have the highest growth. So this means working on your AI API integration skills, because most companies are integrating tools that already exist. Build expertise in how systems work, how processes are automated. What are some best practices there? Deepen your understanding of AI governance. So you may have all taken an ethics course in your program or done some readings on the impact that technology could have. You have the definition of bias under your belt, but you have to stay on top of these things as you continue to work in the workforce. What are the current policies in your sector that about AI? How is that being regulated? What are the potential risks as these new models develop? Stay on top of your readings and stay on top of what the sector requires. And that's very, very key, is to not only take what you graduate from and just move into the workforce, but be continuously learning about the policies and what's going on in the ecosystem. And this falls back in line with your knowledge of foundational AI models and AI tools. We've heard last year, new technology comes out, it kind of shakes our world. And there's always new papers, new models, new technologies that are emerging. And if you're not staying on top of them and you're not upskilling continuously, you will fall behind, because companies want to hire people and they're interested in understanding how they could also be adopters of these great technologies. So someone who is ahead of the curve and not necessarily applying these models, but at least understand their impact and what they are, will be someone that people want to hire. So technical piece, here we go. I'm going to spend a little bit more time on the non-technical experience. So how do we get this real world experience? I've talked about all of these things. A really, really key way to do that is to get yourself an internship. So if you're studying in a graduate program and you've never done an AI internship, you really need to start looking into that, or leveraging a practicum project or an industry project if your program offers that, because that is how you get access to real world data. That is your first opportunity to pitch to a program or to a stakeholder on the potential business impact and have that be real. So I encourage you to seek out a work integrated learning opportunity where you can. This can be a capstone project. This could be one of Vector internships. We have 3 different kinds and they're all fantastic. So definitely check those out. We have applied internships, a machine learning associate program, as well as research internships. So depending on your path that you're looking for, I encourage you to apply and explore also the number of internships and co-ops that can be found on Vector's Digital Talent Hub, because that is going to be your key to access real data and what a real business is like and what they're working on. And if it's not an internship and you're like, I don't have time for that or something else, get access to real world data where you can. Personal projects are fantastic too. Build up your portfolio to highlight to employers that you have that experience and the business impact of the potential of your skill set. So this could be doing, Kaggle competitions with real data, finding a real data set online and accessing it and doing your own thing and putting it on GitHub and highlighting, the benefits of the work that you're doing. But real world data and being able to work on that and articulate what that means for you is incredibly important. And that falls into practicing your communication. So you've done these projects, you've done these internships. What does that mean for you? And that means that you have to be able to translate all of the projects you've done between a technical and business context. So I encourage you to find a friend, find a family member, hey, even pitch it to your pet, but take your AI project and figure out how you can do that 1 or 2 minute pitch on something and articulate to a random person who has never, learned about AI and doesn't know what you're working on, why that would be meaningful to them and why that would have an impact on what they're doing. And little self plug here, but we're going to be doing an early careers in AI day in January. Well, we'll be having a workshop on that, and you'll have the opportunity to practice with your peers in person, exactly that. And if you are interested in that, you will be receiving an email shortly today, because it's for the benefit of registering for this event, to come join us in Toronto in January to practice and workshop that before you meet with recruiters. So stay tuned for more. And this also applies communication wise, not just the pitch, but also on paper. So have your resume, your portfolio, share your GitHub link, your personal website with people in your program, people in programs that are completely unrelated to you. Like if they're in a, English master's degree, even better. Can they understand, at least at a very, very high level, what you've done and how that could be important? Third thing, learn to position your non-traditional experience. I've heard from lots of students that they're scared because they're pivoting to AI. It's new for them. They've worked in a different sector before. What do I do with all this experience? And the fact is, that's great. We love that experience. Learn how to position that non-traditional experience as sector-specific knowledge. And that could mean that your public relations experience or, your experience in geography could have a lot of impact in a company that is working in mining or working across different borders. So don't be scared if you have experience that you think is not relevant or it doesn't seem important. It absolutely is. It's about how you pitch that statement in your application, in your interview, to show how that is a benefit to companies as you bridge those gaps between people who don't understand that sector and people who are working purely on the technology. So don't be scared, just learn how you can pivot and position. And last tip for you, your next steps, grow your professional network in your target industries. Have a plan for what you want to do. A data scientist is very, very different from a data engineer, which is very, very different than a machine learning researcher. So have a vision for exactly what you want to do. There is a webinar that is on our YouTube channel that has covered this before, where you can learn about the different kinds of AI roles and, identifying your path. So I encourage all of you to check that out if you can, because that is probably my number one tip for people who are starting into a program. What do I do? Figure out what you want to do first. Pick where you want to end up, and then focus your growth throughout your program as you're graduating on growing your network in your target industries. And this could mean peers in similar programs, leveraging Vector Institute at our events to meet different people who are working in those areas. And this could mean also, reaching out on LinkedIn. And I don't mean like spamming random people in the roles that you desire, but if there's someone in your dream role, it doesn't hurt to say, hey, that's my dream role. This is a very specific question for you. Do you have a time to answer it? Can we chat or something else? Because it doesn't hurt to put yourself out there. And we all know that networking is important to end up where we want. AI is a growing field, but still a small field. And we have to make those relationships count. So there we go. Those are some tips. I hope that was helpful. And I am exactly on time. So you've done hearing from me, but there are two fabulous Vector alumni who will share about their tips on getting hired, and you'll have the opportunity to ask them questions, and I'll ask them questions as well. And without further ado, let me pull up my screen. Okay, hold on. Without further ado, let me go ahead and introduce our next two speakers. So we have Justin and Ankita who are here today. I'm delighted to welcome them to our virtual stage. Justin is a technology architect at Telus Data and Trust Office, focusing on building trust and transparency within AI-driven solutions. So I've talked about trust a lot today, and he's going to share a little bit about that later on. So recently joining Telus after an applied ML internship at Vector Institute, Justin brings a solid grounding in responsible AI practices. His work centers on collaborating with businesses to create technology that respects AI trust and safety, as well as adding responsible AI components to existing frameworks. He is committed to finding a way to balance both the utility and safety of these AI systems. So yay, Justin. We also have Ankita here today. She's a data scientist at State Street within the corporate audit data analytics and innovation team. Her work focuses on delivering data-driven risk and assurance insights to the audit department and its stakeholders. She has a master's degree in data science and AI from University of Waterloo, and she's also gained valuable experience as an AI education intern and an ML associate at Vector Institute. So we have all three internship programs that I mentioned earlier today represented here today. So she's also previously worked at Alta ML, which is a leading developer of AI-powered solutions, and with experience in both software development and analytics with fintech. She's committed to creating both innovative and impactful data science solutions. So please join me in welcoming them both. And we'll go ahead and get started because that's what you really want to hear from. So to help our audience get to know you, I know we've kind of introduced yourselves, but can you share a little bit high level about your journey from student to AI professional? We'd love to hear about your educational and work background and generally about what led to your current role in AI. So I'll go Alpha. Ankita, start us off first.
Of course. Thank you, Joanna. Hi, everyone. So yeah, I'm Ankita, and I'm currently a data scientist at State Street. But like most of you here, I also started out as a student. So I was enrolled in a master's program at Waterloo in the Department of Math. So my program was called Master of Data Science and AI. But before actually being interested in the data science field, I was working as a software developer back in India, and I was working with some major banks there. And I realized that there are so many use cases there that cannot be purely solved by automation, and that they needed a lot of analytics and predictive modeling. And that really pivoted me to, learn more about this field. So I enrolled in the master's degree here, and it was a 2-year program at Waterloo with a co-op term as well. But I think what I find most interesting, along with my core curriculum, was also the internships at Vector. So I worked with Vector for a period of 8 months. And for the first 4 months, I worked as a machine learning associate. And then I joined back as an AI education intern. So as a machine learning associate, I had a chance to work with a leading organization or a startup called as Strax. And they had a very interesting use case in the construction domain. So that actually gave me a very good insight into a domain I had not worked before, and also apply whatever I had learned at Waterloo into those 4 months. And then later on, as an AI education intern, I really gained valuable skills into, translating all the technical concepts to non-technical stakeholders. So overall, with my academic curriculum, I had all these interesting, industry-related skills that I think helped me, pursue my career as an AI professional. And yes, towards the end of my degree, I also started doing a lot of networking. I also started reaching out to people for coffee chats on LinkedIn. And that helped me understand the different kind of roles that are there in the data science world and what is it that really excites me. So I think the one thing I'll say is that I was always curious. Throughout these years, I wanted to know what are the different applications of AI and what is it that I want to do when I go out there. So yeah, that really helped me reach out to professionals, and I worked with Alta ML then for 6 months, and I recently started my job at State Street where I work in corporate audit. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey, and happy to be here.
Thank you, Ankita. Over to you, Justin.
All right, nice to meet everyone. So I'm Justin Young. I'm a recent UBC CS Master's graduate. I also did my undergrad in UBC. I focused in stats and CS at the time. And back then, AI was, of course, catching the heat, and I wanted to get into it. And so, starting from my undergrad program, always knew I wanted to be in this field. So I immersed myself, getting any research opportunity I could get. And in my master's, I was particularly not really satisfied with my pure like computer vision direction or natural language processing, which at the time now I look back as a mistake, but still I was more into privacy concerns. But yeah, so I contacted a professor, and she we had a really nice chat about like how responsible AI is going to be a part of the future, and how that's going to be something that we want to think about as we move forward, as we are more reliant on these AI models. So yeah, that deeply drew me in, like that direction drew me in. So for my master's, I focused on differential privacy, privacy enhancing technologies and image generation and data synthesis, those kind of topics. And later on, this led me to my internship, which I did with Vector, and I was very fortunate to continue this direction, I worked on a project called FL for Health, which is essentially deploying federated learning methods into actual real-world applications that expectedly we want to use in healthcare, but the algorithms can be used anywhere. So that really got me into realizing that there's just more to the puzzle than rather than developing new algorithms, that just purely seeing a research paper and having that into this deployable framework by itself is already a great leap forward. And that made me realize that there's so much to this puzzle that I haven't really yet explored. And I initially wanted to continue and do a full-time in vector. After a few coffee chats with a lot of the people there, I realized it wasn't immediately available. So apart from like preventing myself from doing like doom scrolling and doom application applying, what I did essentially was I'm just going to apply to two or three ones that I feel was really relevant to me in the Vector Talent Hub. And I decided not to think about it for about like 2-3 months. And fortunately, Telus reached out to me. So that leads me to here now. So I'm now a Telus technology architect. But this year has been so like interesting for me as I've transitioned from a master's graduate to an intern and then an intern to a full-time in the span of 1 year. So it's been very turbulent, but also very exciting. I've been able, like, I found myself like adapting daily to new needs and new challenges. And yeah, I'm just excited to share my journey with everyone.
Amazing. Thank you both. Both very interesting paths to where we are now. So we've all talked about bridging the gap between, I think, academia and transitioning to industry right off the bat. So it wouldn't be fair of me to not plug again our vector internship programs and the importance of exposure to real world data and business problems. So as an alumni of Vector, could you share a little bit about how that internship experience is helpful in bridging that gap between the academic learning and industry application? If you have a specific product or example that helped you prepare even better. So I'm gonna flip it. Justin can start.
Sounds good. So for my project, I did allude to it that it was practical settings. So that is one thing that often doesn't really get talked a lot about in academia. Often we just do data set. If you're doing vision, it's always going to be CFAR10, MNIST, ImageNet. These data sets are nice, but they don't cover 90% of your problems, which is how do you actually get the data itself? And I think the more that I did this internship with Vector, the more I started to realize that doing something, deploying something is difficult. And it's so much more than just, I have this idea, this research paper says this works, so therefore I can do it. There's more to this puzzle than how do I get the data itself? How do I ensure the AI model doesn't continues to perform the way I want it to perform? What are the guardrails I can do to prevent that from happening, to detect that from happening? And what are the methods I can take to, ensure that it does continuously, like I can continuously update on this model. You won't always just train this model and be done with it. So I think Vectors, that internship project really helped me think about a lot of the really real world problems that translated really well, especially into my job interview. I think when I was doing the interview, what really resonated with everyone at the panel was that I said that, at the end of the day, data is 90% of like getting the data is probably harder than your AI model itself. And I think that really resonated with a lot of the people there, and probably sealed the deal. I'm going to be very honest, because now in my work, 90% of the problems are still revolving around data. Like, although like I'm more on responsible AI risks, like that's my responsibility as a technology architect to work through the responsible AI risks. But often that we have to ask a few questions around your data. How do you ensure that these things are not like biased or not biased? Like there needs to be like these type of questions asked. So yeah, I would say just think beyond just your traditional like standard computer data sets. There's so much more to this world than just your MNIST data set. And yeah, and I feel like if the more that I realize that there's just problems that I have not solved, like I'm not met before, the more I feel like I'm learning as well. Like like this panel, I'm really just also learning too. Like there's a lot of things here that I find myself lacking. So don't worry. I think everyone here is just learning in this process. And machine needs to learn and we need to learn too, right? So just don't worry, just keep it easy and just take, like just learn as you go.
Great advice. And now you have a one-liner that maybe other people will steal for their interviews and steal their deal too. Over to Ankita.
Yeah, 100% aligns. My answer aligns with Justin. So we did have to deal with a lot of messy data, and when we do a lot of university projects, it's the data sets that we download online, and they do not at all resonate with how the real world data looks like. So when we actually started this use case, it was dealing with data that had a lot of missing information that was very inconsistent. So that took a lot of time for us. However, there was one other thing that we did at Vector is before actually starting to work on the data, we created like project charters and project plans, which is something that we do not do in a university setting. So I think out of the 4 months of the internship, the first month was heavily spent on understanding the problem case itself, understanding who are the stakeholders, and understanding, what are the milestones that we kind of need to achieve. So we had to have repetitive rounds of interactions with the team to perfect that document. There used to be various versions where we used to update, okay, what are the risks in this? What are the ethical AI considerations? So there was a lot of planning that went in. And I think that was really interesting for me because that gave me a new perspective on how to solve AI problems. And then what happens is that it's not just you who's doing the problem, yourself. You have an entire team with you. So you have to collaborate with the project manager. You have to collaborate with your teammates, and you have to collaborate with so many other people that it's really exciting. You learn the skill of communication and collaboration and understanding how it is to deal with people who come from different perspectives, and you get to learn a lot from them too. So for me, it was brainstorming a lot of ideas with them. And I have to admit that the first 2, 3 ideas that we had did not essentially work. They were not scalable at all. So, you're figuring out solutions with your team and you have this eureka moment that, oh, okay, this is it that's actually going to work now. So that is really exciting. I had a lot of this exposure at Vector, and then I think it was really great, like the solution that we had, the problem that we solved. And then the last thing I will touch base upon is when you actually have, your answers, how do you present these to your stakeholders? So we basically had a presentation at the end where we had to show them visually how everything came along together. And it was not just pure numbers, but like pictorial representation, some kind of graphs that really helped them understand what is it that we were trying to solve and how better could we get at that. So I think all in all, the end-to-end journey at Vector was something that really prepared me for the corporate world, I'll say.
Perfect. That leads wonderfully into my next question. So, Ankita, there's definitely differences between, what you're learning in a data science program in the classroom and what that looks like in application. So can you share about your experience post-graduation and how your judgments kind of shifted around how to select when AI is and isn't the right solution, and maybe how to translate those technical concepts into practical application?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So I think to answer the first one, like how to select which is an AI problem and which is not. So a lot of times what happens is that some problems are heavily data driven and you need like predictive analytics from it. When you have a lot of data and you can kind of interpolate the data, make some future predictions from the past, I think that can really be an AI problem. But sometimes there are problems which can really have rule-based answers where you can create some rule-based flowcharts or algorithms that can solve them, or you can just have very simple software automations. In that case, you don't need to categorize it into an AI problem. So there have been cases where I've worked in the previous organizations where you do need to just automate some processes, and for that, you do not need AI applications at all. But then in actually translating this into, a practical use case, what I will say is that, first of all, just think about the business objective. Whenever we get a use case, we just heavily just drill into it. We look at the data, we look at the different kind of models that are applicable and how we can translate those. But for me, what has always worked is talking to people and seeing what the business objectives are and if they are going to align with what I'm trying to do. And recently, what has become really important is even though a problem has an AI solution, is it really ethical to do it? So working with fintech and working with banks, I have realized that it's really, really important to have a transparent system where I cannot just, explain the how, but I also have to explain the why. Like, even if I'm able to deliver 100% nice solution, it has to be acceptable by the stakeholders, and I have to make sure that end of the day does not have any adverse implications on the reputation of my organization. So that in itself has been a new learning for me. And I think that is really important when you translate from a student to an actual professional in the industry. You have to be really careful about these guidelines.
Amazing, absolutely. And I think this follows perfectly with what Justin's working on and the increasing demand for AI governance and ethics expertise. So, Justin, how do you think governance and responsible AI considerations factor into your day-to-day work? And what should students know about this aspect of AI careers?
Yeah, I'd say it's 100% of my work actually. It is essentially what I do, trying to explore like what it means for AI and AI ethics. Yeah, like I would say for students, it's actually not important for you to dedicate this much time into it because for sure you're in a controlled environment. You're a lot of the things that you do need to know needs to be in this controlled environment where you don't really have these concerns. But I'm not saying completely brush it under your bed or whatnot. Just you have to be aware of these issues. Like recently we had the Google Gemini thing, like threatening an AI student, a student trying to do their homework. Like these type of questions are the questions that actually are relevant to stakeholders. Like they don't want these types of things to happen to their AI product. And it's important for you to understand and start formulate, okay, what would I do in that case? What can I suggest to these people? How do I prevent these type of things from happening? There's a lot of great like databases for like there's called the AI incidents database, I think, essentially documenting a lot of cases where AI went horribly wrong. And when we say horribly wrong, they go from literally illegal to ethical, like very ethically ambiguous like cases. So I would really recommend students to be aware of these stuff and not necessarily learn all about it. I say this in the sense that it's just difficult to cover every single case. It's difficult to know all the privacy enhancing technologies. It's difficult to know all the bias mitigations and all the fairness concerns. But you have to be aware of what are the like common ones and what in those AI incidents happened. Like what exactly was the down to the root of the problem? Like let's say for example, like the threatening, was it because that this AI system did not have any sort of mitigation towards like any filtering towards these answering, like or could we have enhanced it with some sort of like agentic AI where we essentially have another LLM filter to filter these things. I think about it in a more of like, oh, this is a problem, and mostly your stakeholders will want you to solve this problem rather than for you to always fearmonger them. It's different from just looking at a news and say, oh, AI is bad. You have to think about how to solve this problem, and that's way more difficult than just trying to say no, right? So like developing what it means for AI ethics as a whole, I would say even companies don't know the answer for that. So it's fine for you to not like be 100% there because no one is 100% there. The meaning of ethics, like there's a lot of great books on it and I'm learning myself. So, and I quote, like it's ethics or especially AI ethics is something that you have to explore. It's something that we have to collectively explore and what that means. It's not something that we instantly know, like just going into it that, that we have some things that are acceptable and not acceptable. We have to experience a certain use case and for us to say, okay, intrinsically say, because we have that like ethical, moral means, we can say that, okay, this is probably not okay for us to do, or this is probably ethically ambiguous. And here's how we can do to make it more transparent. Here's what the things that we can do to make it more responsible. So like the thing is, I would just recommend students to just keep that loop open, to always just see an incident and see, oh, this is how you could fix it. And you would be surprised how many job interviews you would nail just because you had this extra loop, or just, you just had a one-liner and people would really resonate with that single one line.
Thank you, Justin. I think you need to compile a list of one-liners for people to use by the sounds of it. Ankita, I'm also curious to hear about your thoughts on that, as well as we talked about continuous learning a lot. So in addition to learning about AI ethics, how do you approach continuous learning in your current role? Do you have any suggestions or resources for, staying on top of content and staying current?
Yeah, I think what's really worked at me is attending events in person. So I recently moved to Toronto and there's a Toronto Machine Learning Summit. There's a Toronto Machine Learning group. Like there's all these kind of different groups that you know from LinkedIn or you even know from your peer connection. And I try to stay up to date with these events. Apart from that, just trying to enroll in mentorship programs. So I was really happy that Vector gave us an opportunity to do that as well. So I met a lot of people in the industry and just having chats with them, kind of tells you what are the new, use cases that they are exploring and what is something new that they are trying to learn. So recently I learned about AI agents and then, I started to do my own research. So once you know about something that's trending, I just look up online on blogs. I look at a lot of like series of webinars, like Vector also has most of them. But I think just talking to a lot of people and attending events definitely works for me. And I think for people who are interested in reading research papers, there's also, of course, a lot of conference happening around the globe. So that's a good idea to keep yourself updated with the new research that's going on out there. So that mostly works for me.
Fantastic, thank you. And I think circling back, I've talked a lot about standing out in the job market, standing out in the interview. So I know students are wondering, when applying to jobs, when you're interviewing, what do you feel you did most effectively to differentiate yourself from other candidates? What made you stand out? And I'll throw us over to Justin first because he has a whole book on this.
Yes, I did, and yes, I still do. I have applied to probably more than I can count. The more than my hair. Then, I've applied to so many jobs, and like just in the span of, I would say two months in my 2 weeks in my master's, I applied to like every week. I would apply to like 20 or something like that, and it was part of me got really like anxious for sure, because let's be very honest, the job market is not like a very nice job market, but you can still utilize what you have. And I found out later on, it's less about what you put, like all these amazing things in your CV, because there are a lot of projects that I feel like was, oh, it's so amazing, but no one talks about it. Like I've developed this individual application that leverages LLM. Why are people not interested? And then you just realize that it doesn't really align with what they are looking for at all. So of course they won't be talking about it. And I think this is what I want to emphasize is you need to look at your CV and treat it as if that's not your own. And that you're treating as if you've never met this person ever before in your life. And now you're trying to gauge this person. What is the first thing that draws into you? Like this could be, you could ask your friend to look at your CV and have them comment on what's the first few things that stand out. And that's when you realize that like the first few things that they notice is their personality of your CV. And those are the things that when you talk about during your interview, these are the things that you need to strongly emphasize and how to make that make sense. You need to say that these are the things that I've experienced, why I experienced them, why I moved from, let's say, from my recent master's graduate, like why did I go to do a vector project? Well, because I did. It's related to my work, right? I was fascinated with responsible AI in my master's, and I want to explore that further. So that's why I went to this FL for Health project. And for FL for Health and to this responsible AI as a technology architect, what it is, well, it's still responsible AI, right? But I want to explore more. I want to know more than what's on the algorithm itself, what's behind, like what's on the decision making. How do we actually make things happen? I want to know the entire AI landscape. Like these are the things that when you say, people will really resonate with. And it's more than just I've done all these courses, I've done all these amazing projects. Like people will not talk about it at all. Like as much as I want them to talk about it, because I could talk all day about like some interesting projects as I did. But as an industry, like for an industry, it's just not that appealing for them. They just want to find someone with alignment in their values. And for someone to know, like to display the adaptability to learn. And don't be worried that you don't have the skills. For the job that I'm currently at, they called for 3 to 5 years experience, and my experience is mostly in school. So don't be worried that that's there, you won't fill some requirements. I think at the end of the day, what you need to do if you get a job interview is to display some alignment in value and show that you can learn, and that's much more important than being able to be 100% there, because their expectation of a candidate is way different from the actual candidate pool. So just think about how you stand out from what, once you get an interview, how you stand out from the candidates, how to display your personality rather than, oh, everything you do, I can do. Like, I got this. Like, don't just do that. Just think about, oh, these are things that I can learn more on, and I'm very excited to learn more on. And I know like these are places that I've done really well, and these are also places, a lot of other places that I could improve upon. So just have that personality displayed.
Love that. Thank you, Justin. Ankita, what do you think helped you stand out? And I guess that's also advice for students who are entering the job market.
Yeah, I'd say it's true that it's really competitive these days because the applicant pool definitely does get bigger day by day. For me, what worked out is I did apply to a lot of jobs, but what I did before the actual application was I made sure to research about the company, and then I also read very carefully their job description. I wanted to see if it really aligned with what I wanted to do. Like every company, they have a mission and a vision statement, and if it really aligns with you, then you really become passionate about it. Then you kind of align your resume, and kind of show the projects that might be of most interest to them. One thing that worked for me is I had a portfolio of the things that I had done myself, like small projects that I did. And my interviewers were really nice at Alta ML, so they kind of gave me an opportunity to also showcase what I had done. So, I just kind of went ahead and showed them. So this is something that I did, and I think that this could be a potential use case for your company as well. And they found it really exciting that, I went over and above the other candidates and actually showed them something that was valuable for them. And I think while you're doing that, they're also trying to judge how you are as a person, like how you could fit as a teammate. So showing your communication skills and in general skills that you'll be adaptable to the team are really important because everyone wants someone who is good with technicals, but they also want someone who can be easily adaptable. So something that Justin said, like even if you do not have 100% of the requirements that are mentioned on the description, you have to show them that you're adaptable. You have to show them that you're really interested and curious to know. I think that stands out a lot. So when you research about the company, when you read the job roles and responsibilities, and you know that these are the skills that maybe you do not have, but you can get certifications or you can learn them on the job, that goes a long way for them. So I think that is really something that worked for me.
Fantastic advice. Thank you, Ankita. And we have 2 minutes left, so I'll each let you have 1 minute to share about what advice you would give to current students who are entering the job market. Is there anything that you would do differently? We've talked a lot about we've done well, but what would you change? Ankita, I'll get you started off first.
Yeah. I think I will say start early because it definitely gets very stressful at the end of your degree. Like you have to finish your capstone project, you have to make sure you get good grades. So I think networking and talking to people is something that cannot happen overnight. You have to bring a you have to have a strong network, but for that you have to really start early. So the earlier you start, the better it is. Try to have coffee chats with people who really excite you, like whose job role is something that you want to do in the future or a specific domain that you're targeting. So if you want to enter into fintech, try to reach out to people in banks who might have some expertise on AI use cases. So this is something that I started, I think, a little bit late, but that would be my advice. Just start early, start networking and talking to people, and that should really go a long way.
Thank you so much. And over to Justin. You have 1 minute.
Yeah, so I would say also join career fairs. Be sure to bring your CV along and have a nice chat with them, and ask about what they're lacking and what you can do to provide. And most often in these career, like these, it won't go anywhere, but at least you'll be getting a few more connections that will be regularly showing new job postings. So yeah, I would recommend joining those career fairs often. And also just going out for a walk after you've done an application, submitted a few applications, like just care more about your mental health. Like it's a stressful time for everyone. Like don't be too stressed about not finding a job immediately. It will come, like eventually it will come. And as long as you showcase that you have the ability, the required skills, I don't see why a company wouldn't want you. It's just, oh, how about getting there? It's just about the path that you want to take at the end of the day for yourself. And always think outside of the box. Like, as you may have known, like I come from a very academic background, right? So I would never have applied for this job if it wasn't just for, let's just try it, let's just try AI governance and ethics. So always don't limit yourself. Go beyond like what you traditionally think. Like AI is just one aspect of, like machine learning and these stuff, right? It could be that at the end of the day that you're doing something drastically different than what you think you initially were applying for, just in my case. So just give yourself like some time to reflect on, okay, well, I've seen this field and it's clearly like I've applied it. It's not really fruitful right now, but could I be expanding myself towards other fields? Could I be speaking to professionals in other fields? And most likely, I think leveraging your university resources is equally important. You have so many amazing professors that you can talk to that will be really willing to talk to you if you're just like, oh, I want to have a general chat with you. Like they will have a lot of industry connections too. So don't be afraid to reach out to your fellow friends, fellow graduate students, your recent graduates, and especially the professors. Just talking to them, like then you'll realize that yeah, there's a lot to this picture that you haven't considered yourself. And usually these professors have a lot more better input and more customized input than today, this panel. But yeah, I would recommend just don't limit yourself and take it easy.
Great advice. Thank you to both of you for, spending the time with us and sharing all of your insights. So build connections, take care of yourselves, do your research. And if you haven't answered your question, we'll try and get to it. The recordings will be shared, but thank you so much to all of you for joining. We'll wrap up here today and hope to see you at a next Vector event, and feel free to reach out anytime. So have a great rest of your day, everyone.